Greetings, my loyal JEBCORP subscribers.
Today, we're taking another deep dive into a team during this NBA SoRare offseason. This is the 5th team we're taking a look at. And if you have not seen the other 4 videos, I highly recommend you checking out the playlist in the description below after this video. Now, before we get started, as always, it is deeply appreciated when you smash that like button on this video. And if you don't have an NBA SoRare account, go ahead and check out the description below for some additional information and a link that will help you create one and provide you with an awesome promotional deal. Also, just a reminder of my non-financial financial advice. The whole purpose of this video is to highlight players that we think are flying under the radar this offseason and will hold more value once the NBA SoRare season has started. However, that doesn't mean you need to rush out and buy them immediately. We have over 2 months left of the offseason and additional cards that will be sold once the season has started. Please observe the market and make thoughtful and purposeful purchasing decisions. Now, with all that out of the way, let's talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. After yet another disappointing, although not surprising, second-round exit in the playoffs, the Philadelphia 76ers have internally imploded. James Harden has become incredibly outspoken about never returning to the 76ers and forcing his way out by any means necessary, while Joel Embiid has more subtly hinted that he might be out the door as well. Miraculously, the 76ers have gone from a championship contending team with a reigning MVP to possibly the biggest dumpster fire in the league. Unless Daryl Morey is able to pull off a straight-up miracle, the 76ers look like they are about to become the biggest seller in the NBA. And if you watch my videos, you should know that sellers are a golden opportunity on NBA SoRare. So without further ado, let's go ahead and check out the 76ers on SoRare data. Now, personally, I don't think James Harden will be playing a single game for the Philadelphia 76ers. Whether he's technically on the team or not, I do not see him actually being on the court. And as a result, that automatically puts Tyrese Maxey in an incredible situation, regardless if the team ends up being a complete dumpster fire or trying to still compete. Now, Maxey has the standard circulation here with a 3-day average sitting at around $23. He has a 37 cap, which is very high. And as we can see, over the season, he was a very integral part of this team, averaging over 35 minutes a game. Now, if we take a look at the price chart here, we can see besides this insane pump that he had at the beginning, I think because he was absolutely playing out of his mind, if I remember correctly, he's been relatively flat. You know, we've seen a little up curve here, but it's continued to go down, bottoming out at around $10 and then, creeping its way back up to 20 to 25-ish. Now, one thing that we're not seeing here, and one of the reasons I wanted to highlight Maxey, is the fact that we're not seeing a significant pump after James Harden basically said he is leaving the 76ers no matter what. Whenever James Harden wasn't playing last season, whether it was because of injuries or load management or, a late night out, Tyrese Maxey directly benefited every single time because he went from being a bench player to a starter, and he went from someone who maybe was more of a catch and shoot guy and kind of an energy, fast break type of guy when Harden handled the ball and they were both on the court at the same time to being the main ball handler and facilitator. Now, if Joel Embiid does leave the 76ers, it's important to note that Maxey might become a bit more of a priority for the defense, but overall, Maxey has incredible speed. I think he is an incredibly talented basketball player who has not even gotten close to his ceiling. And at the very least, if Harden leaves, I think he really gets to test out that ceiling. And if Embiid leaves as well, we might as well have another Jordan Poole situation here, where Tyrese Maxey is going to have the greenest light ever known to mankind and is going to be dropping 30 field goal attempts per game. I just think regardless of what happens to the 76ers, Tyrese Maxey is in a prime position because there is no way he is getting traded or moved off this team. Now let's go ahead and take a look at his scores real quick. We can see, like we said at the beginning of the season, he was absolutely unconscious, dropping 50, a 68, a bunch of 40s here. I believe he suffered an injury here, and then he came back and went right back to it, consistently dropping 40s and 50s. Now, take this next statement with a grain of salt, but I think it is totally possible for Tyrese Maxey to be the steal of the year on SoRare. We were seeing this type of production with the three ball hogs known as James Harden, Joel Embiid, and Tobias Harris. Like I said, the ideal SoRare situation is Embiid, Harris, and Harden leave, and this man is Jordan Poole 2.0, just doing whatever he absolutely wants. And when people are paying $50+ for a Devin Booker who is going to be alongside two other guys that need the ball in their hand at all times and have a high volume of shots, paying half that price for Tyrese Maxey seems like an incredible steal. Now, another player who is in a very similar situation to Tyrese Maxey, I would just say his ceiling maybe isn't as high, is D'Anthony Melton. Now, D'Anthony Melton has a standard circulation here, a price under $7, a cap of 20, which is pretty great, and he is only 3 years older than Tyrese Maxey. Once again, if James Harden is the only one who leaves the 76ers, D'Anthony Melton is in a much better position in terms of putting up SoRare points. However, if Tobias is included in that James Harden trade, or he's included in a Joel Embiid trade, then once again, D'Anthony Melton, similar to Tyrese Maxey, just gets this incredible green light because the 76ers have no one else. Now, let's take a quick look at his price chart. I don't think there's anything super notable here. We see a quick spike here. Once again, similar to Maxey, I think Melton was balling out kind of in the beginning. We see another spike here as well when Harden was injured and not playing. And since then, we've seen a consistent trend downwards where people are getting him close to, $4 to $6, which I think is a great deal for D'Anthony Melton right now. But the one thing I want to look at is his scores. Now, these aren't consistently as high as Maxey. You see less 40s here. You see less 50s, but you still see quite a few. And a 66 here. And a 42 here in the playoffs. Once again, all the same talking points we had for Maxey apply to D'Anthony Melton. The one caveat is Melton will be behind Maxey in the depth chart, and Melton probably has a slightly lower ceiling than Maxey. However, at a fifth of the price or a fourth of the price for Maxey, once again, Melton, I think, is an incredible dart throw and could end up being one of the better steals for the entire season, especially if the 76ers team completely implodes and gets right back into the process. So the first two players we talked about were guards, and that's because the fact that we pretty much know James Harden is gone to some extent. I don't think there's any situation where he actually plays and contributes to the 76ers this season whatsoever. Now, the next three players I want to talk about are all big men. And this is because of the possibility that Joel Embiid might get traded. And I think especially if Harden and Embiid get traded, Tobias Harris is for sure gone because the 76ers would love to get off that giant contract. Now, the one caveat I do want to mention before I get a little too excited here is the fact that if Embiid and Harris get traded, although the 76ers will probably mostly be looking for draft picks and young assets, one of those young assets could be a center or a power forward who ends up starting in place of Joel Embiid and or Tobias Harris. So in an ideal situation, these next three guys we're talking about are going to get way more run because they will suddenly move way up the depth chart. But it is important to realize that Embiid could stay. He could get traded at the trade deadline and they could bring in some other big men. There's a lot of different possibilities here. Regardless, however the 76ers situation ends up, I think these next three big men are in a great position for you to at least be watching. Their prices are pretty reasonable, and there is a real potential that they get a massive increase in usage. So with that being said, let's go ahead and take a look first at Paul Reed. Now, out of the three 76ers big men we're going to talk about, Paul Reed is for sure the one I'm most excited about. And that's partly because I was very excited about him last year. If we scroll down real quick at this price chart, you can see that I bought 4 Paul Reeds and I sold pumps multiple times. I have one left currently, and I would not mind getting another Paul Reed. But we'll talk about that in a sec. Let's take a quick look. He's got a standard circulation as usual, a 3-day average of $5, a cap of 13, which I love to see. Now let's go back to the price chart here. We can see we got this massive spike here early on. I'm assuming this is because Embiid was injured. We'll take a look and confirm when we look at the scores. But we can see here, we have multiple pumps here. We have another little pump here. We have some serious verticality right here and another solid spike right here. There were multiple windows where he had significant value on the marketplace and in SoRare lineups. I think Paul Reed actually has a pretty high ceiling for SoRare purposes. And unfortunately, last year, he was hindered by the fact that Doc Rivers, for some reason, was not the biggest Paul Reed fan and would split up time between him and Montrezl Harrell. However, Doc Rivers was fired, and Montrezl Harrell just suffered a season-ending injury this offseason. So regardless if the 76ers lose Embiid or Harris, I think Paul Reed definitely has an opportunity to perform much better than he did last year. And on top of that, Joel Embiid is a bit injury prone. And I think after winning the MVP last year, he's going to be taking his foot off the gas and trying to make sure he's healthy for the playoffs, regardless of what team he's on. I just think that everything is pointing to the fact that regardless of what happens with the 76ers roster, Paul Reed will get far more opportunities this year, and that could equal to some huge W's on SoRare. Now let's take a look at his scores real quick. We can see that he put up most consistently some 30s and 40 here too, and then we do see a 43 and a 52 here. One of the reasons we're seeing a number like 52 here is because Paul Reed at any moment can just put up 5 to 8 blocks in a game. Let's go and take a look at that score a little deeper, actually. You can see 17 points, 10 rebounds, solid double-double, and then, 5 blocks. Paul Reed is a tall, lengthy, athletic player. He is a bit raw. His footwork's not anything incredible. Sometimes he looks a little bit like a baby moose out there, but just the raw athleticism and raw ability is there. And I think if he gets that opportunity to develop and really get consistent minutes and become a key part of this team, regardless of whether they're a team that is actively tanking because they traded away their star players or is making a push because they kept Embiid, I think Paul Reed has a real opportunity to be a big part of either of those situations. So maybe I'm a bit biased here because I've been on the B-ball Paul train since day one of NBA SoRare, but I cannot stress enough that I think it is totally possible we see Paul Reed in quite a few optimal lineups throughout the season. Now, the last 2 guys I want to highlight, we're going to kind of do these together, and that is Dwayne Dedmon and Mo Bamba. Now, neither of these 2 players particularly excite me like Paul Reed does. However, they once again are big men that might get a lot of additional usage because of the fact that Embiid and Harris might be on their way out. That coupled with the fact that Montrezl Harrell, like we said, is out for the season before it began, just gives these players opportunities to get some real windows of value and usage. Really quick, let's take a look at Dwayne Dedmon first. Standard circulation, dirt cheap price, cap of 9. Price hasn't done really anything. If we take a look at his scores, we'll see, he had a 28 here, not terrible. And we have a 27 back here, a couple 20s. Not the worst. I'm not super hyped on Dwayne Dedmon, but I think the reason I wanted to highlight him real quick is that he really can't get cheaper. So I think it's worth at least picking up one of his cards because he's so cheap. Because, there is a world where he is the backup center because of trades and or injuries. And that could net him 20 minutes a game for an extended period of time where, he's putting up some 20, 30-point SoRare games. And with that low cap and that dirt cheap price, it's like, why not? This is as cheap as it gets. Might as well have one. And then let's take a look at Mo Bamba here. We have a slightly below normal circulation here, but nothing too special, nothing to worry about. We got a price sitting at around slightly below $4. We got an incredibly low cap at 6, which I love to see. If we take a look at his price chart, we'll see he has a massive spike here and then a very massive spike again. And then he kind of falls off the face of the earth. We see people are scooping him up for, like under $2 here, close to 3. So, I mean, once again, while this is not Dwayne Dedmon, this is still a very low priced player. And then if we take a look at his scores, we can see that while he hasn't done anything insane, we do have quite a consistent little high 20s, 30 run right here with a 37, a 38, and even a 41, which is great. And then a bunch of DMPs and low scores. I would assume this is partly because of injury, and then also because he seemed to kind of get cut out of the Magic's rotations, partly because they had a million big men. And then when he ended up getting picked up by the Lakers, he never really played. And I don't remember if that was specifically just because of injury or because for some reason the Lakers didn't want to work him into their rotations once again. So out of these 3 big men, I am by far the least excited about Mo Bamba here. And it's a combination of his high price compared to Dwayne Dedmon and just kind of the lack of knowing exactly what he's going to be doing on the 76ers team or if he's even going to be playable. So this is a guy that I would for sure watch. I would not buy one under any circumstance right now, this very moment. But I definitely think he's worth watching and just kind of seeing what the 76ers maybe kind of indicate, what they think about him, where he lands up on the depth chart. And then at the beginning of the season, see one, if that price dips because, additional cards of his are getting minted. And then also see if that price dips because, he's not doing anything spectacular or getting a bunch of minutes at the beginning of the season. Because I do think there's a world where if Mo Bamba is closer to under $2, like sitting at that $1.50 mark, I'm suddenly very intrigued, especially if Embiid is still on the team, because there is a possibility he gets traded at the trade deadline, and suddenly Mo Bamba is thrown in there because they have no one left. So yeah, out of these 3 guys, like I said, Paul Reed, I'm by far the highest on. I think regardless of whether Embiid gets traded or not, I think he has some real potential to be a incredible SoRare play and hold solid value throughout the season. Dwayne Dedmon, I'd rank at number 2, and that's mostly just because he's so dirt cheap. It's like, why not have 1 or 2 of him? He really can't go much lower. And then Mo Bamba would be 3. He'd be someone that I'd be more interested in just watching and kind of see how he fits into the 76ers system. So yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. Ultimately, I think the 76ers are a absolute dumpster fire, like I said, and I just think that provides us NBA SoRare players with some really golden opportunities where we can prepare for multiple situations. I think knowing that James Harden is going means that Maxey and Melton instantly become very, very interesting pickups. Meanwhile, Embiid's status is a little more unsure, so I wouldn't go and, stack 20 Paul Reeds or anything like that. But I do think regardless of the team he's going to be on this year, he will be taking his foot off the gas pedal because he got that MVP. So he's going to be resting more. He's going to be doing more load management. So even if he stays on the 76ers, I think there's some opportunities for Paul Reed there. And then finally, I'm somewhat sure that Tobias Harris will get traded. I guess I could see a world where they keep him if they're keeping Embiid. But that contract is so ridiculous, and I think the 76ers would prefer to move on from it. And once again, him being another big man just opens up more opportunities for the other 3 guys we highlighted. But anyways, thanks for watching if you made it this far. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and I'll see you guys next video. Please clap.